Welcome as I revisit the 1980s, a decade of vibrant change and unforgettable moments. Hang on for an epic journey as we count down the top 10 strangest legends of the 1980s. This decade wasn't just about big hair and neon clothes, it was also jam-packed with the weirdest, most unbelievable stories. From the freakiest urban myths to the most jaw-dropping celebrity antics. And trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end because we've saved the best for last, a truly mind-blowing incident from the 80s that you won't believe. You won't want to miss that story, so let's get started and dive into the 1980s. Number 10. I'd like to start off this video with a legend known as the Satanic Panic. It was a huge scare in the United States with over 12,000 cases of supposed satanic ritual abuse reported. But guess what? None of these cases were actually proven. This all kicked off in 1980 with the book Michelle Remembers, co-written by psychiatrist Lawrence Pazder and his patient Michelle Smith. The book made some pretty wild claims about satanic rituals, but they used a type of therapy that's not really reliable, so the facts were shaky. A bunch of different people got really worried about this, including religious groups, police, and therapists. They were all thinking there was child abuse happening linked to satanic rituals. The terms they used evolved over time, starting with satanic abuse and eventually just becoming ritual abuse. And it wasn't just in isolated circles, these ideas got mixed up with other big conspiracy theories too. Now, you should know that the media played a massive role in spreading this panic far and wide. One of the biggest stories was the McMartin preschool trial, which got a ton of coverage on TV and in newspapers. The McMartin preschool trial was one of the most lengthy and expensive criminal trials in American history. It began when a mother accused the staff of the McMartin preschool in Manhattan Beach, California, of sexually abusing her son. These accusations quickly escalated, leading to charges against 7 staff members for abusing hundreds of children. The trial, which lasted 7 years, was marked by sensationalist media coverage and dubious investigative techniques. In the end, no convictions were obtained, and the case was eventually dismissed, highlighting serious flaws in the legal and social response to allegations of child abuse at the time. By the mid-1990s, experts started to understand that this whole panic was more about fear than real evidence. But even though the scare was based on unproven stories, it had a big impact on people's perceptions of crime and society. It's a powerful example of how stories and fears can spread, and why it's crucial to always seek out the truth. The Satanic Panic is a reminder of the power of media and public opinion, and shows us how important it is to check the facts before jumping to conclusion. That's the story of the Satanic Panic, a major episode that taught us a lot about fear, facts, and how we view the world. Next is my number 9. I wanted to include this one right away as it relates to the prior story. The Stairway to Heaven backmasking controversy from the 1980s was part of a larger cultural phenomenon. Some evangelicals believed that playing records backward revealed hidden satanic messages, with Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven becoming a notable example. The controversy was fueled by a Michigan minister named Michael Mills, who in 1981 claimed to hear phrases like "Master Satan" and "Serve me" when the song was played backwards. This led to the song being accused of containing satanic messages when the California State Assembly played a tape of it backward in a public session in April 1982. Robert Plant, the lead singer of Led Zeppelin, found these accusations foul and stated that the intentions of the song were positive. Additionally, the song's engineer, Andy Johns, declared the backward recording process as impossible. Jimmy Page, the guitarist of Led Zeppelin, addressed the backmasking controversy regarding Stairway to Heaven with a sense of humor and skepticism. When asked about the alleged satanic messages in the song when played backward, his immediate reaction was laughter. Page referred to a similar conspiracy theory about the Beatles, where it was claimed that playing their records backward revealed the message, "Paul is dead." He expressed the absurdity of such claims, saying, "It's hard enough writing the music one way around rather than backwards." This response suggests that Page viewed the allegations as far-fetched and not to be taken seriously, like Robert Plant's dismissal of the claims as baseless. Televangelist Paul Crouch further added to the controversy in 1982. He referred to a specific verse in Stairway to Heaven in his accusations about backward messages. The verse he focused on begins around the 4:19 mark of the song, with the lyrics, "If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now." When played in reverse, Crouch claimed that this section of the song contained a satanic message, which he interpreted as, "Here's to my sweet Satan, the one whose little path would make me sad, whose power is Satan. He will give those with him 666. There was a little tool shed, where he made us suffer, sad Satan." Despite these claims, Led Zeppelin has consistently denied any intentional hidden meanings behind the song. The recording is unclear, leading to varied interpretations and speculation about what the lyrics say when played backward, with no concrete evidence supporting any of the claims. As a mystical journey, Stairway to Heaven is said to transport listeners to a pagan past, but its message has been the subject of various interpretations and conspiracy theories, including suggestions of satanic messages and references to drug use. However, these interpretations are speculative and not substantiated by concrete evidence. Number 8. Now let's visit the eerie tale of Cropsey and Andre Rand. In Staten Island, New York, there was this legend of Cropsey, a nightmarish figure believed to lurk in the shadows, preying on young children. It was the kind of story told around campfires to give everyone a good scare. But then, things took a dark turn when reality seemed to mirror this myth. In the 1980s, Staten Island was rocked by a series of child disappearances. The spotlight fell on Andre Rand, a janitor at the infamous Willowbrook State School. This institution had a notorious reputation due to its poor conditions and treatment of residents. Rand became the prime suspect when Jennifer Schweiger, a young girl with Down syndrome, went missing. Her body was tragically discovered near Rand's makeshift campsite. In 1988, Andre Rand was convicted for the kidnapping of Jennifer Schweiger, a case that brought him to widespread notoriety. The jury couldn't reach a verdict on the murder charge, but they did convict him of kidnapping, leading to a sentence of 25 years to life in prison. He was due for parole in 2008. However, in 2004, Rand was tried again, this time for the kidnapping of Holly Ann Hughes, which occurred 23 years prior. New York's lack of a statute of limitations for first-degree kidnapping allowed for this charge. Rand was convicted once more and received an additional consecutive sentence of 25 years to life. As a result, he became eligible for parole in 2037 at the age of 93. This second conviction meant that Rand was unlikely to be released from prison. As Rand's trials unfolded, the community couldn't help but draw parallels between him and the fictional boogeyman, Cropsey. It seemed as if the legend had come to life in the most horrifying way. Rand's convictions for kidnapping solidified these fears, positioning him as a real-life manifestation of the urban legend that had long haunted Staten Island. Number 7. Slavemaster. In the 1980s, John Edward Robinson's criminal activities were chilling and deceptive. In 1984, he hired 19-year-old Paula Guylen Godfrey, supposedly as a sales representative for his firm, Outtro. Godfrey told her family she was going to San Antonio, Texas, for a clerical skills course. Robinson picked her up and she was never seen again. Despite police questioning, Robinson denied knowledge of her whereabouts, and Godfrey's parents received a typewritten letter allegedly from her, stating she was okay but did not want to see her family anymore. The investigation ended with no evidence of wrongdoing, and Godfrey was never found. The following year, in 1985, Robinson, using the alias John Osborne, met 19-year-old Lisa Stacy and her infant daughter, Tiffany, at a shelter for homeless women. He promised Stacy a job, a stable living situation in Chicago, and free room and board, while studying for her GAD after moving into a motel arranged by Robinson. Stacy and her daughter disappeared. Robinson then deceitfully gave Tiffany to his brother and sister-in-law for $5,500 in legal fees, fabricating a story about her mother's death. Stacy was never heard from again. In 1987, Robinson hired 27-year-old Catherine Frances Clampett, who had moved to Kansas City to find employment. Clampett told her family about her new job, which promised travel and a new wardrobe. However, after a meeting with Robinson in June 1987, she too disappeared, and her case remains unsolved. These instances from the 1980s reveal Robinson's pattern of luring vulnerable women with false promises before they mysteriously vanished, marking the early phase of his sinister activities that escalated into more brutal crimes in the following decade. He was given the nickname the Internet Slavemaster. This moniker stemmed from his method of using the internet, particularly chat rooms and online personas, to lure his victims. Robinson was one of the first serial killers to utilize the internet in this manner, making him a particularly ominous figure in the digital age. He was known to engage in the online S&M and BDS&M communities, where he would find and manipulate his victims. Despite his seemingly normal exterior as a Sunday school teacher, a scoutmaster, and a family man, he was arrested in 2000 in Kansas after 2 women's bodies were found in barrels on his property. These grisly discoveries led to a search of a storage facility in Missouri, where 3 more barrels were found, each containing the remains of a woman. The evidence gathered from these scenes, along with his internet activities, linked Robinson to multiple murders. Robinson was tried in Kansas for the murders of Suzette Troughton, Isabella Lewicka, and Lisa Stacy. In 2002, he was found guilty and sentenced to death for the murders of Troughton and Lewicka, and to life in prison for the murder of Stacy. His conviction was significant as it highlighted the dangers of internet predators and marked him as one of the first known serial killers to use the internet to lure his victims. Robinson's true nature was that of a manipulative and dangerous individual, using the internet as his hunting ground for victims. Number 6. Here's a really spooky urban legend from the 1980s called the Bunny Man. This story comes from Fairfax County, Virginia, and it's all about a creepy figure dressed in a bunny costume. According to the legend, this bunny man would appear around an overpass, now famously known as the Bunny Man Bridge near Clifton, Virginia. The story goes that he would threaten people with an axe. The tale has a few different versions. One of the most eerie and chilling stories is set around a bridge in Fairfax County, Virginia, often referred to as the Bunny Man Bridge. According to the tale, in the early 20th century, there was an asylum in the area. When it closed, the residents were transported to another institution, but during the transfer, one of the transports crashed. Most patients were recaptured, except for one known as the Bunny Man. This individual, the story goes, survived in the woods and began to hunt rabbits, not only for food but also for clothing, making garments from their fur. As time passed, carcasses of rabbits began appearing, hanging from the trees around the bridge. The legend turns darker with the claim that the Bunny Man eventually escalated to attacking people, with a specific focus on Halloween night. The most eerie element is the claim that if you're at the Bunny Man Bridge at midnight on Halloween, the Bunny Man will grab you, kill you with his axe, and hang you from the bridge, just like the rabbit. The legend of the Bunny Man became really popular in the 1980s, especially around Halloween. It's a classic example of those creepy local myths that get passed down over time. While it's most likely just a story, it's definitely one that has captured the imagination of folks in Fairfax County and beyond. It's one of those legends that makes you think twice about going near that old bridge at night. Number 5. The Montauk Project is a conspiracy theory that surfaced in the 1980s and has captivated people's imaginations ever since. It's all about a series of alleged secret United States government projects conducted at Camp Hero or Montauk Air Force Station on Long Island, New York. The goal? To develop psychological warfare techniques and exotic research, including time travel. The story goes that the Montauk Project was an extension or continuation of the Philadelphia experiment, a supposed military experiment that reportedly took place in 1943, where the U.S. Navy destroyer escort U.S. Eldridge was claimed to have been rendered invisible to enemy devices. I have a video on this story that you can watch after this video. Now, the accounts about the Montauk Project are full of strange tales. People have talked about everything from mind control experiments to kidnap of young boys for experimentation, contact with alien life, and even time travel. The most out there claim that they actually created a time tunnel which allowed researchers to travel anywhere in time or space. Now, I don't know if this is true, but wouldn't that be cool? This project was allegedly led by scientists who previously worked on the Manhattan Project, and it's said that they used kids, especially runaway boys, as subjects in their experiments. These experiments were allegedly held underground at Montauk's Camp Hero. But here's the thing, there's no solid evidence to back up these claims. It's mostly based on the accounts of a few individuals, particularly Preston Nichols and Al Bielek, who've shared detailed stories about their supposed involvement in these experiments. Let's take a look at these two guys before we move on. Preston Nichols claimed to have degrees in parapsychology, psychology, and electrical engineering, and was described as a self-taught electronics genius. Nichols authored several books, including The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time in 1992, where he detailed his supposed experiences. He claimed that he recovered repressed memories of his own involvement in the project, which he said involved experiments in psychological warfare, time travel, and mind control. Then there is Al Bielek. His story is perhaps more widely known due to his claims of having been a participant in the Philadelphia experiment. Later, he claimed to have been involved in the Montauk Project. According to Bielek, he and his brother Duncan Cameron jumped off the USS Eldridge during the Philadelphia experiment and were transported into the future, landing at Montauk's Camp Hero in the 1980s from the 1940s. He claimed that the Montauk Project was an extension of the Philadelphia experiment and involved large-scale manipulation of time. The stories of Nichols and Bielek, while fascinating, are generally considered to be without credible evidence. Skeptics and researchers into paranormal phenomena often regard their tales as part of modern myth-making or science fiction, noting the lack of corroborating evidence and the fantastical nature of their claims. However, their stories have significantly influenced popular culture's view of secret government experiments and have been featured in various books, documentaries, and fictional adaptations. The Montauk Project became part of pop culture, inspiring books, documentaries, and even TV shows. Next is number 4. A curious rumor from the 1980s about Michael Jackson and his sister LaToya Jackson. You might find it a bit odd, but back then, some people actually believed that Michael and LaToya were the same person. First off, Michael Jackson, as you probably know, was a super famous pop singer. He was known as the King of Pop and had tons of hits like Thriller and Billie Jean. LaToya Jackson, his older sister, was also a singer, though not as famous as Michael. Now, here's where the strange rumor comes in. Some folks started saying that Michael and LaToya were never seen together and that they looked pretty similar, especially in their facial features. This led to a wild idea that they might be the same person, switching roles. Sounds crazy, right? Imagine this, you and your sister are going about your lives, and suddenly a wacky rumor starts swirling around your school or neighborhood. People start whispering, "Hey, have you noticed that we never see so-and-so and his sister together at the same time?" And before you know it, this rumor takes on a life of its own. People actually start believing that you and your sister might be the same person. Now, that's a pretty wild and unlikely scenario, right? But let's think about how you might handle this if it did happen. How would you react to such a bizarre rumor? Also, add to the mix that you are really wealthy. First, would you find it funny and laugh it off, or would it bother you? Would you try to prove the rumor wrong by making sure you and your sister are seen together more often? Maybe you'd go to events together or post some photos online to show you're clearly two different people. Or perhaps you'd take a more direct approach, talking to your friends and anyone else who believes the rumor. You could explain how ridiculous it sounds and maybe share some fun facts about you and your sister that clearly show your differences. And think about your sister too. How would she feel about this rumor? Would you two team up to debunk it, or would you guys feed into it and have some fun with the story? In the end, we now know it was just a rumor, nothing more. Michael and LaToya are definitely two separate people. They had their own lives and careers. Sure, they were part of the famous Jackson family and shared some family traits, but that's about it. Do you think it was possible that they and the rest of the family played into the story for some added publicity? Ultimately, as for why this rumor started, it's hard to say. Celebrities often face weird stories and gossip, and the Jacksons were no exception. Maybe it was because of their similar looks, or the fact that the media didn't often photograph them together. Down to the last three. The 1980s surely were a special time. Let me tell you about a really odd story, something known as the Leonardo da Toenail incident. This happened in March 1980 around some universities in Southern California. Here's what happened. A bunch of female students started noticing something strange. They were studying in the library, minding their own business, and then they'd realized that someone had sneakily painted their toenails. Weird, right? The police got involved, and they even nicknamed the mysterious person Leonardo da Toenail. The bizarre events first came to light when a female student noticed that her toenails, originally pink, were painted green after she left the Doheny Library. She initially thought it might have been a prank, but later contacted the authorities after finding another woman who had a similar experience. During their investigation, campus police found a man in his mid-20s, not affiliated with the university, carrying around 15 bottles of nail polish. However, since painting someone's toenails without consent was only a misdemeanor, and the law required officers to witness the act for an arrest, the man was released. The Los Angeles police planned to file a report with the city attorney, but the case did not progress as the victims were unwilling to testify. Later on, it was suspected that the same individual might have been involved in similar incidents at California State University, Dominguez Hills, the previous year. An anonymous tip and a story in the school's newspaper described a person who would create minor disturbances in the library and paint women's toenails under the table. I'm not really sure what to say about this one, other than it surely is strange. Only two left. E.F. Hutton and Company, a financial firm, faced a serious scandal and financial difficulties. You may remember their commercials, something like this.
I know what you mean. My broker says if I want to beat inflation, I've got to get into the stock market. What does your broker say?
Well, my broker is E.F. Hutton, and E.F. Hutton says,
when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen.
In 1985, E.F. Hutton was charged with 2,000 counts of wire and mail fraud related to a check kiting scheme. This scheme involved fraudulently obtaining $250 million. The scandal led to a suspension of trading in Hutton stock, and the firm was fined $2 million, plus an additional $750,000 to reimburse the government for the investigation. No employees were charged, although there were hearings in the U.S. House of Representatives about the case. The scandal significantly damaged Hutton's reputation. This, combined with the stock market crash of 1987, put the company in a difficult position. Also, in 1987, in response to the challenges the company faced, the firm's executives, led by Robert Ritterizer, the 49-year-old chief executive officer, and his team, created a simple coloring book that was distributed to Hutton's employees. The senior executives thought this was an unusual way to boost employee morale, so they sent all 18,500 employees a coloring book complete with crayons. This wasn't just any coloring book, though. It described the company's problems using simple grade school language. The book featured cute drawings of houses, racing cars, and children, and contained a message urging employees to work harder as the company was no longer the nicest house on the block. However, this unique approach wasn't well received by the employees, as you might guess. In the end, F. Hutton was forced into an embarrassing auction just weeks before its executives thought it might collapse. Saved the best for last. No list of strange and odd legends in the 1980s would be complete without this one. In January 1982, during a concert in Des Moines, Iowa, Ozzy Osbourne, known for his wild on-stage antics, found himself in a shocking incident. By this time, he had already garnered a reputation for throwing animal parts at audiences who often reciprocated. A year prior, in 1981, he had infamously bitten the head off a live dove in front of music executives. The bat incident took this to another level. A concert-goer, Mark Neal, threw a bat onto the stage. Neal had obtained the bat from his younger brother, who initially brought it home as a pet, but it died. Neal and his friends decided to use the bat during Ozzy's concert. When Ozzy picked up the bat, he thought it was a toy and bit its head off, only to realize it was real. He described the experience as having his mouth filled with a warm, gloopy liquid with a terrible aftertaste. This led to the realization that the bat's head had twitched in his mouth. After the performance, Osbourne had to receive rabies shots, and the event became one of the most infamous moments in rock history. A week later, he even collapsed on stage due to a negative reaction from those shots. This event became one of the most notorious moments in rock history. Just imagine the shock of the fans there. It was definitely one of those "I can't believe that just happened" moments from the 80s. He faced numerous questions and reactions from both fans and the media.
Exceeded by his infamy.
I looked, evidently threw an unconscious bat on the stage, and he thought it was a rubber bat, whatever, and he picked it up and bit the head off.
And Shannon's going, "Dummy, it's real." I'm like, what?
The incident not only shocked the audience present, but also left a lasting imprint in rock history, illustrating the extreme lengths some artists would go to in their performances. Does anyone know if he did this while performing Crazy Train? So, there you have some of the strangest and oddest urban legends from the 1980s. Whether these stories made you chuckle, raised your eyebrows, or sent a chill down your spine, they are a testament to the 1980s as a unique blend of creativity, fear, and fascination. As I close this chapter and leave the world of big hair and synth pop behind, let's carry with us the reminder of how legends, however strange, can bring us together in shared wonder and curiosity. Thanks for joining me on this nostalgic trip back in time. Until next time, keep exploring the legends that make our history so rich and vibrant. Finally, don't forget to like, comment, and most of all, subscribe to my channel.